Hi there, and welcome to another live stream question and answer session. I hope you're all well. It's been absolutely bitterly cold here in the UK. A lot of people are watching from England, but I learned this week that there's ever such a lot from all over the world. So if you're in Australia, good day. And if you're in America, how you doing? That's exactly the same. I did the wrong accent there. But anyway, it doesn't matter. We're just waiting for Rich to join us from satellite. A satellite link because he's out running, and we've got some questions lined up. I won't start with the questions straight away because they're pretty prime questions for Rich, actually, as the electrolyte king. And I've been working my socks off in the last few days, just putting the finalizations to a few of the books, the paperback, and those sort of things. Once Rich is in the studio, we'll pop him in. And yeah, looking my age today, I think it's been burning the candle at both ends, but there you go. Here we go. So I think Rich is okay. Can you give us the thumbs up, Rich, if you can hear me and you want to come in? I don't know if he can, but anyway, let's put him on. He's looking confused. Right, and there's a light shining behind you. That's, yeah, you're good. Yeah, you might want to, just as a light across your face, Rich, which is a bit difficult from behind you. And just for people watching, I can't see your wonderful Welsh complexion. There you go.
There we are. How's that?
That's
any better?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, you're a bit dark, but that's great. We have loads of questions, but do you want to tell us what you're up to first?
Yes, I've been away. I am away. I'm in a hotel room in Chester. So today, myself, Amanda, my brother, and his missus ran in the Chester 10K. There were 5,000 entrants. So quite a big run. They had to split the groups into two groups. So one group went off at 9 a.m. and the other group, which I was in, set off at 9:30. So my brother kindly booked this for us. He put everyone in the same group. In hindsight, I should have gone into the other group because the faster runners were in that group. But there was still 2,500 in the group that I ran in. We set off. It was a course that I'm unfamiliar with. I got pinned in. So at the beginning, there is a narrow stretch, and I got boxed in for a couple of minutes, and I couldn't, at least it felt like a couple of minutes. I couldn't break out until we'd actually turned away and gone into a bigger area of the road, at which point a group of maybe 10, 15 runners had pulled clear. So I just sat in, and I just my pace was well below what it should have been, but I didn't want to gas out and try to catch these leaders up. So I just got into a rhythm. I picked them off one by one, and in the distance were the top three runners, and they were quite a way away, but I persevered. I kept chipping on. I could have gone faster, but it's always difficult, as anyone will tell you during a race, that you know that you can go faster, but knowing that you have, a few miles left to go, you always question how much is going to be left in the tank, and it hurts as well, when you run in. I caught up to this group. By the time I got to second and third, the guy who was leading had pulled well clear again. So I stuck behind the guy in third initially, and I thought, this is my chance to podium in my first ever event, for which this feeling came over me, and it made me, it gave me a rush of adrenaline, but in a negative way, whereas I couldn't breathe. So I just tried to zone out and not focus on that too much, obviously being new to running. So I just concentrated on the feet of the guy in third. And I looked at my watch, and his pace just dropped off. So the guy in second began to pull on. So I jumped on the back of him, and the same, and soon after his pace dropped off. But by this point, the guy who was leading was well clear. So I kicked on, I caught the leader. I jumped on his heels, and I stuck with him. I had the pace to push on, but I've never led a race before. And I'm the type of person that likes to track. I like to track somebody more than of a mental issue than anything else. Takes me back to my days where I used to do horse racing tips, and I'd always look for horses that used to track the leaders. And I thought to myself, I could kick on and I could get a PB, or I could just sit in behind this guy knowing that I can take him in the last half mile. And that's what I decided to do. So I sat in, and half a mile out, I kicked on, and I came first out of this group. So I first out of like 2,500 runners, but 128th overall. So the other group obviously had all the super fast runners. Looking at the time that I think I was capable of, I could have come in the top 60, which out of like 5,000 runners total, I would have been well pleased with. But so bittersweet. I sort of won, that race in itself, but in essence, the whole race was two groups combined. So your chip time and race times were actually combined, but I didn't have anybody in front of me to chase. But I'm paying the price now. I'm absolutely exhausted. The drive up was over 4 hours through twisty, winding roads, which it takes its toll on your concentration. And I had a bit of a headache yesterday. I didn't eat much or drink much, so I didn't go into it extremely well prepped. But bittersweet. So I'm pleased that I actually beat seasoned runners, but disappointed that I didn't push on and smash a PB, but that's what I am. So that's what I've been doing. What about you, Stephen?
Well, I've been working very hard on our video that we're bringing out in the next couple of days, which is going to basically say that vegans would love being carnivores because all the things that they want is in the carnivore lifestyle and isn't in the vegan lifestyle. And just to plug a video I put out tonight, which is the Kent carnivore, absolutely fantastic person, and the proof that meat does not rot in your colon could not be more stark with him because he's got a stoma fitted. So for those that don't know, when he eats his meat, when he used to eat his veg, and when he used to eat his nuts, and he used to eat all of his plant-based stuff, he could see it in the bag. And the bag was always problematic with all the different plant materials and anything with fiber. But meat was just beautiful, so bit grisly, but what more proof could you have? And of course, what caused his colon to be destroyed, and people will hate me saying this, but it's the truth, was the advice he was given, the high fiber, high grains. Anyway, that's a good video. So I've been putting the finishing touches to Rich and I's video, and also to that. And so that's out now. And Rich and I's video about vegans should be carnivores will be out in about 2 days at the most, I think. Anyway, we've got some questions, sir. And these are really your rabbit hole, Rich. So the first one is, what are your thoughts on exogenous ketones as a pre-workout? Dr. Ken Berry has done a video saying they ain't worth taking and could stop the body's ability to produce its own ketones. What do you say to that?
Technically correct, but there's a lot of nuance to this. If I were to take exogenous ketones every day, my body would not need to create its own ketones. Therefore, in theory, they stop your own ketones from working. If you were to take ketones, as I do every day, they actually ramp up the monocarboxyl transporters in your body's ability to utilize ketones. So they allow adaptation a lot quicker, and they signal the body to perform and utilize beta hydroxybutyrate a lot quicker. So I use it for a number of reasons. I know this is about a pre-workout, but I use it for an anti-inflammatory purposes. I use it for cognition, concentration, so on and so forth. As far as a pre-workout, what I tend to do is, it depends what your goal is. So if you want to burn fat and you're a fat burner, then I would train without exogenous ketones. You would be better off taking a C8-MCT, as this is instantly converted into ketones, is sent through the hepatic portal vein, and it's converted into ketones in the liver at an incredibly high rate, whether you were ketogenic or not. And that will signal the body to burn fat. It would also help you run as long as a marathon, depending on intensity. Now, when I train with a good friend of mine, Mikey Davis, who is one of the top athletes in triathlon in the UK, in Ironman. His training is so intense that I can't keep up unless I take exogenous ketones. So most of my training is done sort of the 80-20 rule is the, you know, the thing that's pushed within training. 80% of your training should be like steady state type training, zone 2. I don't completely agree with that, but that's probably a chat for another day. But when I do go running or cycling with him, I'm working, you know, close to my top end, if not right at my top end. The benefit conferred for the ketones allowing me to get to that point is a net gain. Whereas if I was just taking it just to go for a run in a zone 2, then it's not going to be a net gain. I'm not burning any fat, and I'm only utilizing the exogenous ketones. So it depends on what type of training that you are doing. High intensity stuff, occasionally I think it's golden. I wouldn't use it for steady state training, or I would, and I also, like today, for example, I take one of my raspberry bomb before I compete, so I know that I can push, you know, to my upper limit. So technically right, but also wrong. So it depends on, you know, on what type of training you're doing, what you're looking to achieve. So again, there's never one answer, you know, to these things. Mikey himself, he uses ketones in competition, but he doesn't use them in training unless he's doing a very long bike ride. So for example, if you're doing, you know, a 4 or 5 hour bike ride, the gain from doing that in regards to upregulating your body's ability to train for that long, because sitting in the saddle for 4 or 5 hours, going, you know, up big hills it's exhausting. Traveling 4 to 5 hours on the flat is a lot easier. So it depends on what type of training and workouts you're doing. So in those states, you know, Mikey has been known to supplement with the exogenous ketones, but most of his training is done without. So it depends on what type of training. And the same goes for, you know, for the weights. If you're just doing a standard session, but it will give you that energy. It will give you the energy, but it will shut off the fat burning during the time that you are being processed. So it depends on what you're looking to achieve out of that training session.
Brilliant. I mean, it's a 2-part question, because they also want to know, if you're already ketogenic, could exogenous ketones cause ketoacidosis?
No chance. Ketoacidosis will only occur in a type 1 diabetic with poor insulin management. The second insulin hits the bloodstream, ketones will drop, and ketones will only rise so high in a state of being on a healthy keto lifestyle. So it's only detrimental. You only become acidotic if you are a type 1 diabetic without good insulin management. My ketones have gone through the roof to what a doctor would probably deem to be an unhealthy state, but I felt on top of the world. I think mine have gone up to over 16. Going by the urine strips, by the way, so a lot of that is wasted ketones. But I felt incredible. And that's the beauty of using these types of supplements when you are training in competition, because they flood your body with these ketones that you can only reach an upper limit naturally. So if you want to outperform, if you want to PB, or, you know, you're training, you're competing in an Ironman or an event beyond anything you've ever done before, then that's what the ketones will allow you to do. But, you know, use them sparingly for that. I think the benefits conferred are way better in regards to the health benefits. You know, so I use them for recovery, for example. This is why I'm taking it now. So it'll help with inflammation. They help me sleep. You know, if you eat them with food, it's going to cause weight gain because you're competing with energy sources. You're flooding your body with ketones. That's going to take oxidative priority. The food you're eating is going to store and cause fat gain. So I use them to cut, I use them to bulk, I use them to concentrate, I use it for anti-inflammatory purposes. We had a call with Andrew Scarborough, didn't we? With Mark and Phil and Ben recently, and Andrew was saying that he used to use them for fighting cancer. And this is what ketones do. They increase insulin sensitivity and they block cancer cells' ability to use glucose for fuel. Bold statement, I know, but you know these are proven by clinical trials. And I've even reversed somebody's diabetes technically going by blood glucose through using exogenous ketones. This is how powerful they are at increasing insulin sensitivity. Not a replacement for the diet. You don't have to use them. Again, it's just another tool that you can implement if you wish to do so, but they're certainly not required to be fit and healthy.
Yeah, that's brilliant. A brilliant answer. And just to be technically correct, and just to give you the nuance as well, because there will be some people that know a lot about diabetes, you can technically get ketoacidosis if you are a type 2. But what you have to do that is not take your insulin. And what is a type 1 diabetic? A person that can't produce insulin. So you're putting yourself in the state of a type 1 diabetic if you skip your medications. Also, extreme dehydration can be in the mix. And that's because when you're extreme, and these are all extreme things, it's not going to happen to you, absolutely, but just for clarity's sake, if you're extremely dehydrated, the concentration of things in your blood, like ketones or glucose, goes up. Not because there's more of them, but because there is less plasma, there's less water. So anyone watching that wants to pick me up on the what Richard just said in the comments, we know all that. It's never seen, and if type 2 doesn't take their insulin, then you will get a problem. So there you go. Right. But yes, Richard is absolutely right. If you do see it, it's going to be a type 1 diabetic or someone who's put themselves into a situation where they are mimicking a type 1 diabetic, because it's all down to the lack of insulin. Right, here we go. Right. Stefan, hi guys, have a nice Sunday. Thank you very much. What are your thoughts on sugar-free mustard and horseradish? I'd like to put a bit on my pork dishes. Very bad in terms of lectins, etc. I'm just going to jump in with a very basic thing. I don't like horseradish sauce, so I don't have this problem, but I do miss mustard a little bit. But for me, it's a no. I wouldn't use either of those. But if it's the only thing that you want every so often, and it's going to keep you ketogenic or carnivore 99.5% of the time, then then I think you'll be okay. But let's hear what Richard's got to say, because I think he's chomping at the bit.
Yeah, look, I completely agree. And again, this is a journey, and in an ideal world, we wouldn't consume any of these compounds. But I still consume some of these compounds, not so much in the sauces. I've come well away from sauces and other treats, but I have used them all the way along my journey, and they've allowed me to navigate to where I am now. So they've allowed me to reach the destination that I'm, where I am now. In regards, they're not good for us, but is there a net gain? Is using that going to allow you to maintain the journey? Yes. Well, therefore, it does confer that benefit. If it's a case of not using it and falling off the diet or lifestyle, then it's a tool, same as everything else. They are high in, I think it's, my goodness, what is mustard seeds? I know it's polyphenols, possibly sulforaphane, possibly cyanogenic glycosides also. I can't remember off the top of my head. But lots of these toxic compounds in there. But again, it's all about the net gain. If you need to keep these in to maintain the journey, then that can only be a positive thing. The more that you can gravitate towards just eating red meat, grass-fed beef, grass-fed lamb, salting with a Celtic sea salt or pink Himalayan, drinking water with no alcohol, no sauce, the healthier that you are going to be. Is it going to hurt if you throw the odd tomato or whatever in if you go out for a meal with your family? No, it may upset your belly because you are now highly attuned and your body has come through all of these adaptations of processing, and it will give you what's called an exaggerated response. It will tell you the second that it doesn't like something that's gone in. It's happened to me today, as ashamed as I am to say, and I'd like to think that I've been in this space long enough not to fall into traps. But we went to a meal in I won't mention the restaurant because I don't want the food was fantastic, but I did mention about seed oils, and they assured me that they didn't cook in them, but I had a bad stomach after. which I only get when I put compounds in that shouldn't be there. So I can only assume that there was some sort of cross-contamination, or that they do indeed use. Maybe they didn't understand what I meant by seed oils. But yeah, I've had a bad stomach since. The food was fantastic, and part of me, wishes that maybe I didn't go there because of it. But look, I'm away with family. We had just completed an event, and my brother and his wife to be had a bottle of wine and asked me if I wanted a glass. And as tempted as I was, I decided. In fact, I smelt the glass and I thought, I really don't want it. So it's about making these changes. But even I fell into the trap today of consuming something that was in the meats. And this was an all meat place. It was a place you go to, where you put the card up and they just bring and cut the meats, and you just eat as much meat as you want. And I did. I ate a lot of meat. But there was obviously some sort of oil involved with something that they had. It may have been, in the cheese or whatever it is that that I had there. But we all fall into these things, but you just dust yourself off and keep pushing forward. Yeah,
but you're living in the real world, Rich, and people will know these things happen, and it's good for people to hear, because these are just everyone that's watching will be having these sort of social issues or family issues, or going out and thinking, oh, what do I do? And even people that do this strictly and pontificate about it on a Sunday night, we get caught out every so often. So this is the way it works. Don't sweat over it. That's the thing. Move forward. Stefan's got another question. By the way, just want to remind people that if you post your question, don't have to post it twice, because we take a long time to answer. We try to give you a lot of details. We don't just dismiss your question, and therefore, if you posted it a minute ago, it will take us maybe 20 minutes to get to it. So, but we will try to get there. Don't forget, you can use Super Chat to push your question up to the top, which helps us because we do this for free, guys. So anyway, Stefan, one of you said that water content of meat is precious, low deuterium metabolic water. That's true. So methods like drying and dry aging are not so great ideas, as this water will vaporize, right? Well, yes, it does remove the water, but you're doing it for different reasons. For traveling, for longevity, jerky and stuff like that is just handy. Like Rich today, if he's out and about and he wants a really good treat, it's sometimes really easy to get like a beef jerky. So it's a net benefit thing. Yes, you're losing the metabolic water, but you're also gaining the convenience of not having to go into a local shop and buy a load of junk. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. Did you want to add, Rich, or do you want to move on to the next question?
Well, spot on. I think you've covered that.
Good. That's good. Hey all, here we go. This is yeehaw. Hey all, got on the carnivore 9th of January and love it, but OMG, those oxalates, help me. Well, that's the question. Help you. Well, are you oxalate detoxing? That's the first thing. I'm assuming that you are. So for some people, just taking like a green tea or something is pretty good. Lemon juice in a bit of water, braving it out. I mean, I had oxalate crystals come out of my eyes. Never got over that. What about you, Rich? What do you think?
Yeah, we've covered this a couple of times in regards to oxalate. There are a few things you can do. There is a route in which you can go down where you can add some foods that contain oxalates back in. I'm not a massive fan of doing that, because all you're doing is slowing down that detoxification process. But if you are going to do it, my preference would be, personally, some dark chocolate over putting in some spinach, for example. But we can add a binding agent. Many people on social will push calcium. As we've stated a number of times, I'm not a lover of excess calcium. Too much calcium through dietary means and supplementation of over 700 milligrams per day has been linked with 4 studies that I have found that increase risk of cardiovascular disease, by as much as 15%. And it's because we don't consume a lot of calcium in nature. If we look at the electrolyte ratio in beef and lamb, for example, there's 4 times more potassium than sodium. So potassium predominates. And this is why we need so much. This is why a lot of us live in this community come into a lot of issues when over supplementing with things like sodium. but that's probably a talk for another day. So we've got the potassium, and then 4 times lower is the sodium, and then we drop right down to magnesium and then calcium. Sometimes magnesium and calcium can be the same. Generally, calcium is slightly lower than the magnesium, but the cells work on roughly, and it is rough, but a 1-to-1 ratio, which is why some people can lead to cramping, which is a question that was in our private group, which we will tell you all about later. For those that don't know about that, that's free to join. It's a means to get other questions answered. Steve and I go live in there every Monday also, but we'll get on to that now. Too much calcium excites the muscle, so that can lead to cramping. So what people tend to do is increase magnesium, which is counterintuitive when all we need to do is reduce the calcium. There's nothing wrong with putting more magnesium in, but it's almost covering or masking the problem because of the excess calcium potentially causing issues. I'm not saying it will, but why increase calcium if it's going to increase possibly the rate of cardiovascular disease? So calcium is touted as one to bind to oxalate, but for me, coming back to what we've just said in regards to the animal protein containing naturally 4 times more potassium than sodium, in a lifestyle in which we are generally potassium depleted because we supplement with sodium, which we need. So sodium supplementation is important, especially as we're gravitating into a low-carb lifestyle, because when insulin drops, which it does incredibly quickly, this signals the kidneys to release sodium from 4 points in the nephrons in the kidneys, leading to keto flu, i.e. a sodium deficiency. So we supplement with sodium to offset the issues of a low-carb ketogenic lifestyle. But by doing so, this increase in sodium further depletes potassium, which can lead to hypokalemia, which is a deficiency of potassium. So to combat this, we can add in potassium, and that can have potassium citrate. It needs to be a citrate. The citrate can bind to the oxalate and allow an easier sort of transition. But it is cyclical, and it can last a long time. And I'm talking it can last years. It depends how heavily you have relied on vegetables in your life, particularly things like spinach. Spinach and turmeric is incredibly high in oxalates, and contrary to popular belief, these compounds are not good for you. Turmeric is not an antioxidant, and we can get onto that if we run out of questions later. But it's these are compounds that we need to avoid. They are usually the cause of these issues. So in short, potassium citrate is probably the best option.
Yeah, and you covered all the bases there. I mean, even phosphates can bind. It's chelation, it's called, which is the posh term. There's a thing called TACT, which is a study at the moment that's looking at chelation therapy, which has been around for a long time. Removal of heavy metals, that's looking at, and the medical profession don't like it, and they all poo-pooed this study, but it's very successful. So that's the whole point of doing studies, isn't it? But there you go. You would think that's the whole point, but because it's a simple thing to do, not quite natural, doesn't seem like the medical profession want you to know about it. But you can look it up. TACT, the TACT study. Anyway, Ewan says, hi guys, can you shed some light on cherry angiomas? What they are, what causes them? Do they develop into something more sinister, and treatments? Many thanks. Well, we can't get into any medical advice. Normally they're harmless, but I can't see them. Rich can't see them. We don't know your history. They're generally harmless and generally painless. All right, they're just sort of like little blood vessels, basically, and they look like cherries. The technical term, I think, is something Morgan or something. Campbell de Morgan spots, and they used to appear more when you were old. Now, the reason I know about this is because Jane's grandfather used to get them, and I am not recommending this at all, but he used to get a little bit of cotton thread, wrap it around the spot and put it off. But that's not what I'm recommending. It's just that's how I know about it. So if you've got any sort of growths on your body, I strongly advise you going to the healthcare provider, looking at your doctor, because you could be misdiagnosing it yourself. But in the main, that if it is that, then they tend to be painless and not sinister. Did you want to add anything, Rich, at all? No, good. Okay,
all good.
Thumbs up from Rich. Excellent. Jari is saying, sleep issue on carnivore. I've been carnivore and keto over 4 years, and the only issue with this way of eating is sleep. I cannot sleep almost never the whole night without waking up a few times. With carbs, here you go. I tend to sleep better and whole night, but as they cause other problems, I don't want to go that way. Life and DIY made yesterday interesting YouTube video about same subject yesterday. Any thoughts? So any thoughts? I'm not sleeping, but carbs seem to make you sleep. Well, that's always one of the things I always talk about, is because it's not carbohydrates, it's the fact you're getting that increase in insulin. That is what's working. So you're getting all the neurotransmitters that help you sleep entering the brain. That's the gateway. So this is why some people stop the carbs and just have a little slice of butter or something, or a little bit of meat, lean protein. I mean, seriously, anything that gets a little bit of insulin up is going to help you sleep. But Rich loves this subject, so I'm going to hand over to Rich.
Yeah, it's a couple of things to think about in regards to this. One, we're not meant to sleep for 8 hours. Our evolution shows us that, and Steve has covered this many times, which is, it's when you spoke about it last, Steve, that I looked into it, and you mentioned about biphasic sleep and how, through history, we would wake in the middle of the night, we would get up and do something and then go back to sleep. This whole thing about sleeping for 8 to 10 hours has only come since the Industrial Revolution, because we work in 10 or 12-hour shifts, 16-hour shifts, and then we need to sleep in order to go back and do this. So there's nothing wrong with not being able to sleep for a full 8 to 10 hours, providing that you are energized. I still struggle to sleep some nights, but it doesn't seem to cost me any energy or focus the next day. So that's one factor. That's one thing to keep in mind. The other is that what time are you eating before bed? We are the lion, the tiger, the wolf. What do these animals do after they have eaten their prey? They take a nap. But we are told not to eat too close to bedtime. And this doesn't work for everybody, but it does for me. I need to eat incredibly close to go into bed. If I do not, then I wake up and I need to eat something. And that allows me to sleep. For me, it's a nice fatty cut of something, a nice fatty cut of protein or some cheese, so on and so forth. Cheers, man. Other people, it could be, as Steve said, an insulin issue. So you could be coming, if you're new to the lifestyle, which you were not, but if you're new to the lifestyle, it could be hypoglycemia, to which, again, lean protein would do the job without the negative side effects of the carbohydrate. But that's what I'd come back to. So try eating a little bit later or closer to bed, or even just eating a piece of cheese just before you go to sleep. I know the old wives' tale tells us not to eat cheese because we'll have nightmares, but if you have a nightmares, at least you're sleeping. So but that seems to be the biggest issue with me. But coming back to the biphasic sleep, we're not designed to sleep for prolonged periods of time either. So if it's not affecting your ability to function in the day, then is it something that needs to be addressed? Possibly not.
Well, I mean, it's a nice segue for some comments later on about the books I've been writing, which have been a labour of love. There you go, which you can get in a link in the description. Now, I've been getting up and I've been utilising biphasic sleep. I mean, I'm totally with Rich, because this is what happens in the wild. Lions don't eat a gazelle and then go, well, it's a bit early for bed, mates. We've got to stay up and prowl around a bit. They just go straight to sleep. So anyway, I've been getting up at 4:30 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, and loving it. And the biphasic sleep thing it's a choice. So the ancient texts, there's over 500 references in ancient texts of the first sleep, the person having their first sleep. And also, if you look at tribal situations, if you have a bunch of people sleeping in the wild when there's wild animals, you want people of different ages you don't want people of different ages, but people of different ages have different sleep patterns. Everyone knows the teenager who wants to go to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning, but doesn't want to get out of bed until 11 the next morning. So it's all what Richard said about the industrialization and the formalization of our living standards and getting away from natural circadian rhythms. So yeah, so the last couple of weeks I've been doing that. I've been getting up when I wake. Now, the other thing is people often wake up because they need to urinate. Now, in that question, you said carbs help, and therefore it doesn't sound like that is the issue. But if you do get up in the middle of the night to urinate, then drink less water. That's it. As long as your urine is straw coloured, you're drinking the right amount. If you're drinking litres and litres of water and it's making you get up in the middle of the night and your urine is clear, you're drinking too much water. So, right, here we go. We've got a real Oh, sorry. Go on. Yes.
Sorry. Just to jump on to the back of that, it's funny you should say that you've been working. I mean, you've been in beast mode recently, haven't you? Getting up super early and finishing these books and working on this this fantastic presentation or podcast that we've got coming out. Steve is an animal, and I wouldn't be able to do what I do without him. So, firstly, thanks for that. But also, you've made me just realize we're attending an event at the end of this month. It's the War on Health event. If you haven't booked tickets for that, book them now. You can get £50 off with the code Stephen or Richard. It's a 2-day event. Stephen and I are going to be there. We're both speaking. We're going to be there for. Are you there for the 2 days, Steve? I'm there for the 2 days.
Not just doing the afternoon. Do my bloods presentation actually.
Fantastic. So if you haven't booked, get that in because it's an opportunity for to meet and see us guys in person on an incredibly close level. It's not a massive. The tickets to these sessions are limited, but we are both presenting, and Phil Escott asked me recently, "What am I speaking on?" And it was utilizing this biphasic sleep. Where I couldn't sleep and I got up and I thought about my entire presentation, laying in bed with my eyes closed, just think. And I've written my whole presentation in my head. I haven't done it physically yet, but I know exactly what I'm speaking about now because I utilized that time just laying in bed while I couldn't sleep, and then bang, I went back to sleep. So yeah, it's use the time, be productive, get up and do something, and then go back to bed.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think I look a little bit tired. Not because of using biphasic sleep, but because I'm using something unnatural, which is a laptop, for a long period of time. Sadly, everything is done on a laptop. But one of the interesting things next week is I'm starting the audio books. So that's a bit more fun. But I'll still be looking at a screen and reading the text. Anyway, I was trying to say, this is right up your street, Rich. How to activate GCMF, protein-derived macrophage activating factor, on a meat-based diet. Is this the same as autophagy for killing cancer cells? No, it's not the same as autophagy. Macrophages are a part of our immune system, and there is no definite meat or plant-based or any sort of food that will do this. I mean, what happens to the protein is 2 sugars are removed and that activates it, and then it gets the old macrophages working. Macrophages are like the Pac-Men. They go around your system eating up all the bad stuff. So yes, that's like autophagy, absolutely, but you're talking about just part of the immune system. It's not a sort of separate thing. Yes, it's been looked at for cancer research, definitely, but so many other things are. But the bottom line is they don't know what activates it. So unless Rich has got some cutting edge studies to talk about.
No, do you know, I haven't. But what is interesting is that it comes from vitamin D, I believe. Vitamin D is made from cholesterol. So the connection there in regards to an animal-based lifestyle and living a ketogenic lifestyle comes hand in hand. And vitamin D is another topic we can go into, but it all binds into the lifestyle that we live, isn't it? And why we thrive on this lifestyle. But to be honest, that's probably the depth of my knowledge. I haven't gone too deep into that. Maybe one to research further.
Okay. Landers, I had to include carbs back into my diet after 4 months of waking up after 3 hours sleep was hurting my quality of waking. So, yeah, I mean, the thing is, we're not anti anything, by the way. If it works for you and it's the only thing that works for you, we give you alternatives because there's a lot of people who don't want to use carbs. and I totally get that. So let's have a look at the next question, which is why I mentioned the books, because Jacqueline here, Stephen, I bought your guide to blood test book. What a gem! Would highly recommend it to everyone. Jacqueline, if you could drop me an email with a little review, I can add that to the books. But the idea about the blood test is in the context of low carb, ketogenic, and carnivore. What do the numbers mean? And which is exactly what I'm doing at the presentation. And I think we did a thing about the war on health. I do think that's not the greatest of names, because it sounds like we're attacking health in itself, but no, we're trying to help health and attacking a
war
system.
For health. It's the war for health.
So, you wanted to dive in again, Rich?
Yeah, so something just popped into my mind there now. When we think about autophagy and things, autophagy and AMPK and mTOR, they're in the seesaw effect, and we look at one being activated and the other one not, but they're both activated. It's just one predominates. And just by being carnivore or ketogenic, we still benefit from autophagy. But I thought this is worth mentioning, because we always pursued the benefits of autophagy and fasting. The truth is that you don't have to fast, because that's what being ketogenic is. It's a fasted mimicking state. We can reap the benefits of autophagy, mitophagy, brown factor activation, lipolysis, and insulin sensitivity just by being ketogenic. Yes, when we eat, we tip the scale the other way because of the leucine increasing or activating or predominating mTOR, which lowers AMPK on the opposite end. But we're always in that state of autophagy. This is why, I've been recommended more and more recently to, especially women. I find that fasting doesn't seem to work for a lot of women. It does work for a lot of women, but a lot of issues living our lifestyle seem to come from prolonged fasting. Things like hormonal issues, cravings, hair loss, fatigue. And I think that in that state, women need to fast for a shorter window and maybe eat 2 and possibly 3 meals per day, should that help and confer that benefit. But just being in a ketogenic state, we benefit from autophagy. So we don't always need to chase these magic compounds. And remember that a lot of these compounds that we chase, which increase our antioxidant effect, and what was the one somebody mentioned recently? NAC, NAC. And what's other ones going? There's lots going around at the moment, isn't it, that increase antioxidant benefit. But plants technically do this, but most of these compounds do it through the wrong pathway. They do it through that NRF2 pathway, and we can get in more into that if we have time. But we don't need to chase these things, because being ketogenic, if you Google the benefits of beta hydroxybutyrate and ketogenesis, you will see that it increases glutathione. We are in this state of this antioxidant state almost constantly, and this is why we don't need to detox with these special bloody juice cleanses and all this other rubbish and things. But just live the lifestyle. Don't overthink it. Eat when you're hungry. If you're not hungry, don't eat, so on and so forth.
Yes, it is that simple. Carsten says, hello guys, Stephen, your homemade hairspray changed my life. Good stuff. And someone later says, how did you make that, Carsten? Well, all it is water and salt in a little spray bottle. This isn't it, but basically I get some water and put a little bit of salt in there, shake it up, spray it on my hair, and it's good to go. Oh, have you done this as well then? Oh, you're right.
I haven't. I've been using Tallow Glow, kindly sent to me by Rachel Ashby, who I know you've had on your podcast. Incredible stuff. I use it on my skin. I use it on my lips. I use it on my face, when I get dry patches, if I've been running and things. But recently, this is what I've been putting on my hair. I've been using tallow on my hair. So I must smell like a piece of meat everywhere I go. It doesn't smell. It's odorless, but it's yeah. If you like your meat, then you're like me walking down the street. I must be buzzing of this stuff. I'm covered in it constantly.
But basically, don't buy into the sticky, sugary, chemically based hairsprays. Basically, you don't need any of that. Landers, I don't hear anyone talking about it. Does metabolic water waste appear in urine while eating fatty red meat? Well, I mean, metabolic water is just a physiological process and a breakdown of water. It contributes to your overall fluid balance. So the possibility of it ending up in urine is actually unlikely, because it's probably going to be utilized in the body. But there's also a chance it could do. I can't really see the reason for the question, because the body's pretty smart. If there's a type of water in your body that it really needs and likes and makes itself, it's probably going to hang on to it. Yeah. So yes, it could possibly appear in your urine, but it's not something to particularly worry about. But great question, Landers. I like your support. Carsten is asking the second question, which is allowed. We haven't had a question from Matthew. Thank you everyone in the chat for supporting each other. I see there's a lot of to-ing and throwing and talking, and thank you, Cami, because you're always helpful for people. Right. So Carsten, is vegetarian carnivore possible? Just eggs and milk products?
Is vegetarian. So can you be a vegetarian and just eat eggs and milk? That's going to be way healthier for you. This is why generally a vegetarian is healthier than a vegan. So I've released my scale going back quite some time. I'm going to release it again soon. My ladder in regards to healthy lifestyles. Right on the bottom was the standard lifestyle. One peg or one step up was vegan. The next one was vegetarian. And this was because a lot of vegetarians will eat eggs and milk. There are benefits to doing so. It's not optimal, but again, I respect anybody's decision. What I would question there is why are you vegetarian? And generally, it seems to be similar answers to that of a vegan. They don't want to cause harm to animals. And if that is the case, then you need to watch this podcast that Stephen and I are coming out, because you're actually causing more harm by not eating meat. So there's the mic drop. But it's these eggs and so cows, for example. A cow doesn't naturally give milk. In order for a cow to give milk, it first needs to give birth. So in these dairy farms, the cows are impregnated and then they are milked for months and months and months, well beyond what they are capable of. And they've been bred to give X amount, like 7 gallons, I think, over a certain period of time, compared to the 1 gallon that they are meant to give naturally. This leads to a massive udder, basically. So they suffer with excruciating pain, and it can lead to infection and so on and so forth. So it's not pleasant for the cow. But the calf that cow is given birth to, if it's a male, more than often it's killed immediately. If it isn't, it's reared for 40 days and then it's sent to the meat market anyway. So in there lies the issue with you doing this to save animals. You are actually fueling animal death by drinking milk. This is one of the reasons that I don't drink milk. It does go beyond that in regards to the casein and casein's ability to cause intestinal permeability. Even A2 milk can do this. If you are going to drink milk, drink A2 from a local farm who is doing this operation themselves, and try not to buy from the supermarkets, because this practice in which the cows are caged and they are just there being milked all day, every day, is a reality. Whereas if you go to your local farm who uses these regenerative farming techniques, they tend to look after the animals a lot more. They're out roaming, and they milk them as and when they're ready, without going down this route of crossbreeding and leading to this enlarged udder, which gives 7 times more than it should naturally. So there's a lot of nuance to it. And again, eggs, just because an egg says free range, it doesn't mean that it isn't caged at all. I can't remember the official terminology, but free range, it was something like, and I don't quote me on this because I haven't looked at it for a while, but something like 2 hours a day left outside possibly. And I may be completely wrong, but I know that just because something says it's free range, it doesn't mean that they are always outside. Yet that is better than going for free ranged eggs. But my point to this is, bring you back up there. I knew that was going to happen.
You got overexcited. He's gone. He's gone out of the room. So yeah, we'll just carry on. Someone's talking about the hairspray, by the way. Well, the water, it's about that much water, and I put a teaspoon of salt in and just shake it up. That's for the hairspray. I think we were talking about organic farming, but anyway, I'm sure Rich will come back. It's really frustrating because the next question is absolutely for Richard. But I will put it up on the screen and we'll cover it a bit because I think he's mentioned this before. He's coming back in, but there you go. So anyway, here is the question for Rich, and we'll get him back on the stage. And here we go. So once a week man, question. When will Richard's unflavored electrolytes come onto the market? I have a bundle of cash burning a hole in my pocket.
Woohoo! Brilliant. The shipment is due in the end of March. So the first batch is due in the end of March, and that is massively appreciated because I've produced these specific for our community, the carnivore community. The other electrolytes are fantastic, but they do contain stevia, which if you are a strict carnivore, you do not want to be consuming. But this production has cost an awful lot of money to produce. And it's one that I've been putting off because even though, Steve, you and I would use it, and a handful of the elite carnivores would use it, it just tastes of salt water. So it's not very pleasant for someone who is living a ketogenic lifestyle, for example. So no, I appreciate that because these have to sell, otherwise I'm in trouble. So I hope the community takes this on with open arms. But yeah, they are due in at the end of the month, and I cannot wait. The design looks fantastic. Did I answer the other question before my phone decided to tip over?
Yes. I think we needed to move on anyway. And
Okay.
If they want the answer, they can look at our podcast in a couple of days about vegans and carnivores. And there's another shout for unflavored electrolytes because Andrea struggles with the ones with sweeteners. So we've got a really nice question here, which I think either of us can answer. AA. I wonder if that stands for amino acids. Anyway, question. Strict carnivore since August 2023. Sometimes I fall asleep shortly after eating my evening meal, always before 6 p.m. Too much protein at once or question mark? Well, yes, when you start on the carnivore way of eating, you are eating more protein and therefore you're eating less carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates, let's say it was the same quantity, it was 2,000 units of carbohydrates and 2,000 units of protein. Let's just say that. And you get rid of 2,000 units of carbohydrate. Well, 5% of that intake was used to digest it. About 5% of that is going to be taken away to be used as energy. Now, when you eat protein, so you've taken that away, that easily digestible stuff called carbohydrates. Now you're eating this nutrient-dense protein. You need 5 times the amount of energy to digest it. That's the first thing. So if that's your situation where you've dumped carbs completely and you brought in this really nice protein, your body is now working 5 times as hard to digest it. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just means this is what you should have been eating. Going back to the lions, so if you watch any wildlife program, they all eat. They don't go and climb trees and bounce around going, woohoo, we've just fed. They all just rest and digest. I mean, that's what they do. So that's maybe what you should be doing. Firstly, so maybe that's natural. Secondly, to do the question mark bit, yes, you could be eating too much protein for you at this moment. You might not be fat adapted. So the fat within the protein could be problematic for your bile production. Maybe that hasn't caught up. Maybe the stomach acid hasn't caught up. There's many different reasons, but I do feel that you could maybe eat twice a day and not have so much just before 6 p.m. Or you could just understand it and get used to it and then find that eventually you won't be tired after eating this way because your body will catch up. It's a bit like, Rich doing his running today. If it was the first time he ever went to Chester to run, he wouldn't be bang on it. He would be absolutely shattered, probably wouldn't have done this show, be lying on the bed there with ice on his legs going, never doing it again. And that's your body. It's got to adapt to this way of eating. So everything inside you is going to upregulate. Now, when we say adapt, we're actually not saying adapt to a new situation. We're saying revert to what you should be doing, because how you was eating before is the thing you adapted to. When you're a baby, sadly, your path is laid out for you by your parents and their decisions, and also by the multi-million-dollar food industries and what's available at schools and stuff like that. And you end up eating, a bunch of rubbish that's not good for you. So you're just going back to how you should be eating. So you're not really adapting. You adapted in the old days, and now you're just stepping back to where you should be. So that's my 2 penneth. We've got 6 minutes to go. So Rich, do you want to dive in with a bit more?
No, I think you've covered that. All good.
Oh, right. I was deliberately quick because I thought you'd want to. Right. Well, Don has asked another question. So, Stefan, what is the best time to drink coffee? I assume it's 4 hours before or after a meal and 4 hours before exercise. Actually, that's for you, Rich, isn't it?
Coffee. Look, in an ideal world, we wouldn't be drinking it. But it does have its benefits. I still drink coffee, but it's not to do with the caffeine. So the overconsumption of the caffeine can alter the glutamate to GABA ratio, which can lead to excitability, anxiety, depression, and so on and so forth. But if you know where your limit is, then that is maintainable. The danger with the coffee is the acrylamide, which is also found in decaf, and is created during the roasting process. Acrylamide is a known carcinogen, and that's the reason to avoid coffee, in my opinion. But if you are going to consume it, I mean, for me, I consume before I train because it's a known ergogenic aid. I also can co-consume it when I consume exogenous ketones because the caffeine there works synergistically with the ketones and the output is considerably higher. It's a known fat mobilizer. So if you do use it before intense exercise, it signals the body to burn more fat. So if you have a cup of coffee, for example, before you do any training, you will burn more fat. Times not to drink it, I wouldn't drink it too late. And don't overconsume because the overconsumption is going to lead to an elevation in cortisol, which is going to release stored glycogen to stabilize hormonal balance, and that can lead to an increase in insulin, and it becomes this nasty cycle. So keep coffee consumption to a minimal. Use it as a tool. Don't use it as a crutch. When you start to have to rely on it just to perform daily duties, then that's the time that you need to take a step back and think maybe I should be looking at reducing or removing this compound.
Okay, brilliant. Now, there's a couple of questions about the next hour. Well, it's not an hour. At 8 o'clock p.m. UK time, we go over to the other platform which rhymes with Apple Crumble. The link is in the chat. It's also in the description of this video on this platform, in the description down below under the video where we talk about what we're going to do. There is a link to the next bit, which starts at 8 o'clock. It isn't an hour, by the way. Tom J has asked, does that platform store live streams? It should. They should be on there. I'm having problems with that platform at the moment. I don't really know why. I haven't done anything wrong. And somebody else asked, Martin asked, overeating with dairy, why is that? It's normally because firstly, the sweetness, the dopamine hit. You've got casomorphines, which are sort of addictive in there as well, which is a casein sort of morphine hybrid, which makes you want to eat it. So I suppose when you look at dairy, what is its purpose? Its purpose is really breast milk. It has the 9 essential amino acids. It's the most bioavailable thing. So it's designed for a human that's little and wants to grow. So the mother would want the baby to attach and want to do it again and again and again and again, which is good for it. But we're humans of an adult age and we still choose to do it. So, we are bucking the trend. I'm not anti-dairy. I'm not pro-dairy. I'm just telling you how it works. I have dairy. I have cream. If I want my body composition to improve, I drop the cream. And I wouldn't touch yogurt because I like to eat it too much, you see? So I know what it does. But anyway, going back to what's going to happen next, we're going to shut down here. Thank you all for all your questions and attending. It's been really good. I don't know. I can't see whether your channel has had this tonight, Rich, but anyway, we've had.
It's because I've joined through my phone. I don't think it has. I can't really see an awful lot on this, so I can't see the chat. There are buttons and things, but I'm too scared to touch stuff because I knocked my phone over earlier. So
yes. So thank you for doing it, Rich. Thanks for turning up. We'll see you in a couple of minutes over on the old Apple Crumble. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and hopefully we'll see you next week as well.
Thank you.